The morning sun glinted off the tarmac at Edwards Air Force Base, throwing long streaks of light across rows of sleek F-22 Raptors. Dust swirled gently in the desert breeze, and the hum of distant engines provided a low, constant drone. Lieutenant Cara Bennett's boots crunched against the concrete as she approached the airstrip, each step measured and deliberate. Her flight suit, freshly pressed and adorned with patches that hinted at accolades no one outside the Pentagon could decipher, seemed almost ceremonial under the rising sun. Behind mirrored aviator shades, her eyes were unreadable, but inside, her mind ran 1,000 calculations at once, scanning the base, the jets, the men and women around her. This was not a casual inspection, not even close. The Admiral himself had been notified of her arrival hours before, his brow furrowed, his patience thinning with every cryptic briefing from the Pentagon. According to the papers, Cara was a civilian contractor brought in to evaluate the squadron's combat readiness. Yet the tension in the hangars, the sudden hush in the corridors, the way seasoned pilots exchanged subtle glances, none of it matched the story she was supposed to be telling. Everyone here felt it, though no one could admit it. Something about Cara Bennett demanded attention. The first person to speak was a young lieutenant named Harris. His voice trembled as he approached her, but he tried to mask it with authority. "Lieutenant Bennett, I'm here to brief you on your assignment. The Admiral, he doesn't usually." Cara tilted her head, interrupting him gently, almost dismissively. "I know who he is. Let's not waste time." Her voice was calm, smooth, but underneath it was an edge that made Harris's stomach tighten. Something about the way she moved, the way she stood so naturally on the runway, radiated authority. He felt like a student caught off guard by a teacher who didn't just know the subject, she owned it. The Admiral emerged from the control tower in a rare moment of visible agitation. He was a man who had commanded fleets, flown sorties over hostile territory, and made decisions that determined life and death for hundreds. Yet now, faced with Cara, he hesitated. His normally sharp gaze lingered a second too long, and the subtle twitch at the corner of his jaw betrayed his irritation. He waved a hand, gesturing for her to stop. "This isn't your base," he barked, voice cutting across the tarmac like a whip. "You're not cleared for this level of access. Leave, now." Cara didn't flinch. She didn't even step back. The mirrored lenses of her shades reflected his image, but her stance remained perfectly still, grounded, and somehow unshakable. "With all due respect, Admiral," she said, her tone measured but carrying an authority that made the surrounding officers straighten in their uniforms, "I'm exactly where I need to be, and I suggest you let me finish my evaluation before making any more judgments." A murmur ran through the crowd of onlookers, a subtle wave of curiosity mixed with unease. The young SEALs in the observation tower exchanged glances that carried more than just surprise. They carried recognition. Whispers passed like sparks along a fuse. "Ghost Rider, she's here." At that, the Admiral froze. Ghost Rider. That call sign alone had toppled more than a few reputations, a name carried through classified mission reports that few people had permission to read. Yet here she was, in full view of the base, standing calmly as though this reaction were expected. Cara moved closer to one of the F-22s, her gloves brushing over the fuselage as if she were greeting an old friend. She crouched slightly, checking the intake vents, the control panels, the exterior hull with precision only someone who had flown these machines in combat could possess. Harris watched her, heart pounding, as she performed the motions with the kind of fluency that no civilian contractor could possibly achieve. Every movement was a statement. She belonged here, whether the Admiral liked it or not. The wind picked up suddenly, whipping her hair into her helmet. A gust lifted the edge of her flight suit, and for a brief moment the insignias of past missions, awards, campaign patches, honors so secret they weren't even on her official records, glinted in the sunlight. A few older pilots blinked, recognizing medals they'd only heard rumors of. Cara straightened, sensing the subtle acknowledgement without turning around. The radio crackled to life with a voice that froze everyone on the tarmac. "Ghost Rider, ready for takeoff." The words were simple, but their effect was catastrophic. Heads turned. Mouths opened. A few SEALs instinctively dropped to one knee in respect, the muscle memory of a lifetime of loyalty kicking in before their brains could process it. The Admiral's jaw went slack, a rare vulnerability exposed in a man used to giving orders rather than receiving shocks. Kara's lips curved into a small, almost imperceptible smile. Not arrogance, not pride, but a recognition that the first wave had landed. She looked at the Admiral, then at the other pilots and SEALs and said softly, "Shall we begin?" And just as she reached for the cockpit handle, the base's alert sirens blared unexpectedly. Red lights flashed across the tarmac. Mechanic crews scrambled, engines roared to life, and attention settled over the entire airstrip. Something, or someone, was coming fast, and no one knew exactly what to expect. The Admiral's hand hovered over the radio, his mind racing. He had seen countless emergencies, crises, and threats in his decades of service, but nothing like this. Ghost Rider, the woman he had just ordered off base, was about to show him, and everyone else, just what she was capable of. Kara's eyes, hidden behind her reflective shades, scanned the horizon. Calm, precise, and deadly focused, she adjusted her gloves and helmet, each movement deliberate. The air around her seemed to crackle with the promise of impending action. And then, as if on cue, the first F-22 roared down the runway, engines screaming, and the weight of history, secrecy, and unparalleled skill settled over the base like a storm cloud. The Admiral's voice caught in his throat as he whispered to himself, "What have we just unleashed?" End with suspense. The base held its collective breath. Kara Bennett, the pilot no one expected, the Ghost Rider everyone feared, was about to take off. And the world, at least the small, elite world of the SEALs and fighter pilots, was about to change forever. The roar of F-22 engines echoed across the base, bouncing off hangars and distant mountains. Dust swirled into the early morning sun, creating a hazy gold halo around Kara Bennett's jet. Her hands gripped the throttle with the precision of someone who had spent years mastering the cockpit, not in simulators, but in combat zones no one spoke about publicly. Her eyes, calm and calculated behind the mirrored visor, scanned the runway, the instruments, the squadron standing by. From the observation tower, a cluster of SEALs and pilots watched her, breath caught in their throats. Even seasoned veterans couldn't fully mask the awe on their faces. Harris, the young lieutenant from yesterday, shifted nervously, trying to absorb the fact that a woman, someone ostensibly civilian, was moving with the command presence of a force the military rarely acknowledged aloud. The Admiral's jaw was tight, fingers curling around the railing of the control tower. He had faced crises that would have flattened lesser men, rogue missile tests, overseas insurgencies, near collisions of fighter jets over hostile territories. But Kara, she unsettled him in a way no one else had. His instincts screamed caution, yet his curiosity gnawed at him. Who is she, really? "Lieutenant Bennett," Harris called nervously over the radio, voice clipped but shaky. "All systems green. You're cleared for takeoff." "Copy that," Kara replied smoothly, her voice betraying no emotion, no hesitation. But beneath her control, a spark of anticipation flickered. She wanted to see just how far the base could push her, and how far she could push them. The mechanics on the tarmac froze in a synchronized pause as the F-22 began its slow, deliberate taxi. Kara's boots were steady, her movements deliberate as she scanned the runway one final time. She passed a group of junior pilots who attempted small, polite nods, only to have her eyes, sharp and almost predatory behind the visor, acknowledge them without a single word. Respect was not requested here. Respect was demanded silently by the aura of her presence. "Admiral," one of his aides whispered, she's moving like she's run this base before. Should we intervene?" The Admiral's eyes narrowed. "No, let her. Watch." His voice, though quiet, carried the weight of decades of command. He knew he was about to witness something extraordinary and terrifying. Kara lined up on the runway. Her jet thrummed beneath her, alive, a beast of metal and fire. She adjusted her throttle, running through pre-flight checks in a rhythm that was almost musical. Each switch, each lever, each gauge responded under her touch with an intimacy that could only be earned through real combat experience. Harris swallowed hard, realizing that the manual instructions he had memorized for months were trivial here. Kara operated from memory, instinct, and skill that transcended any training protocol. And then she pushed forward. The F-22 lunged down the runway, a blur of steel and sound. Dust erupted in a violent cloud behind her as she lifted smoothly into the sky. Other pilots scrambled to follow, curiosity, duty, and sheer disbelief propelling them into action. But Kara was already beyond reach, cutting through the air with precision that left her pursuers reeling. From the tower, the SEALs watched in stunned silence. One muttered under his breath, almost to himself, "She's impossible." Others dared not speak. They only nodded subtly at each other, a silent acknowledgement. The woman they thought was a civilian had the skills, instincts, and reflexes of a legend. Ghost Rider had arrived. The Admiral clenched his fists, jaw tight. He had been trained to predict maneuvers, anticipate threats, and control outcomes, but Kara shattered every assumption. She banked sharply, cutting across the flight path with an elegance that defied physics, and the young pilots chasing her barely managed to keep the formation intact. She wasn't reckless. She wasn't showy. Every movement was deliberate, tactical, and devastatingly precise. "Sir," Harris said, voice tight with awe and fear, she's handling that like it's a routine sortie. She's not just a pilot, he trailed off, shaking his head. Words failed him. The Admiral didn't respond. He only watched, silent, as Kara executed a series of maneuvers that left everyone scrambling. Vertical climbs, barrel rolls, tight loops, all executed with fluid grace that betrayed years of classified missions. Every movement screamed experience, authority, and lethal efficiency. Pilots on the tarmac stared open-mouthed. SEALs exchanged tense glances, and even the mechanics seemed frozen mid-motion, unsure whether to be terrified or impressed. Then, just as Kara leveled the aircraft and slowed for a pass over the base, the unexpected happened. A warning blared on the radar. An unknown blip approached at high speed from the northeast. Kara's eyes narrowed, and instinct took over. Without hesitation, she banked sharply, disappearing into the clouds in a split-second maneuver that left everyone scrambling to follow her path. The Admiral's face went pale. "Unknown aircraft. Intercept protocol now," he ordered, but even as his words left his mouth, it was clear no one could match her speed and skill. Every SEAL and pilot knew it. The woman they had been warned to distrust, ordered off base, and doubted at every turn was already beyond their reach. From the observation tower, one of the senior SEALs spoke, voice low and almost reverent. "She's one of us. She was one of us. We trained her, remember." Harris turned to him, confused. "Trained her, but she's—" "Ghost Rider," the SEAL interrupted, eyes locked on Kara's vanishing silhouette. "She's Ghost Rider." The name hit the base like a thunderclap. It carried weight, history, and a reputation that few dared challenge. The other pilots looked at one another, their bravado faltering. Here was someone who had operated in shadows, whose missions were classified to the point of myth. And now she had arrived in plain sight in their base, challenging everything they thought they knew. Kara's jet returned, slicing back through the clouds with a roar that made the tarmac tremble. She touched down, landing with flawless precision as if she had rehearsed the move 1,000 times. Engines whined to idle. Dust settled, silence fell, and all eyes were on her. The Admiral's hand hovered over the radio, frozen. His mind raced through decades of command, trying to reconcile the woman before him with the rumors, the legends, the call sign he had just heard. Ghost Rider. He realized with a sudden and uncomfortable certainty that every rule, every protocol he had relied on was now secondary to the presence of this woman. Kara removed her helmet, hair loose and slightly windblown, eyes scanning the gathered squadron. Calm, poised, and utterly in control, she exuded a quiet authority that demanded acknowledgement. Every SEAL instinctively dropped to one knee. Every pilot straightened. Respect earned, instantaneous, unavoidable, filled the air. And Kara, smiling faintly, whispered under her breath, though the whole base seemed to hear, "Shall we see what you've got?" The tension was palpable. The Admiral froze, realizing that the test he thought he was conducting might already be over. The line between legend and reality had just blurred, and no one, not even him, could predict what Ghost Rider would do next. End with suspense. In the distance, a radar ping lit up, a second aircraft, fast, unknown, incoming. The base braced. Ghost Rider had already taken off once, but now the real challenge was arriving. And the question hung in the air like smoke over the desert. Who or what is coming for her? The desert sun had climbed higher, painting the base in harsh white light that reflected off every polished surface. Kara Bennett's F-22 was a shadow streaking across the tarmac, yet she moved with fluid, deliberate precision, as if she had been here before, as if she belonged. The pilots who had scrambled to intercept her jet now hovered in their cockpits, gripping their controls, attempting maneuvers she anticipated before they could even execute them. Each bank, each dive, each ascent was met with an equal and opposite counter, effortless on her part, frustrating for them. From the observation tower, the SEALs whispered among themselves. The name Ghost Rider hung in the air like a warning. It was a call sign born in darkness, forged in classified missions no one outside elite circles could acknowledge. It was legendary. Kara wasn't a civilian. She was a force, cloaked in secrecy, walking among them as a ghost in plain sight. The Admiral stood at the base of the tower, fists clenched, jaw tight. He had faced rogue jets, unexpected intercepts, even missile malfunctions. Yet nothing unsettled him like this woman. Her precision, her timing, her cold, controlled intensity, it was almost unnerving. She moved with authority without needing to demand it. The silence around him carried tension thick enough to choke, as if the base itself were holding its breath. "Sir," Harris's voice trembled over the radio. She's maneuvering like she knows our every move. It's impossible." The Admiral's eyes didn't leave the flight line. "Impossible," he muttered, voice low, tight with a mix of awe and fear. "She's beyond our reckoning." Above the clouds, Kara executed a series of vertical climbs and barrel rolls that would have shredded a less experienced pilot's focus. Every motion was perfect, controlled, tactical. She was not playing games. She was evaluating, testing, asserting dominance. Behind the mirrored visor, her eyes scanned the horizon, every radar blip, every aircraft in the sky. The unknown incoming target detected earlier had not disappeared. It had only grown closer, faster, more threatening. "Ghost Rider," came a radio crackle from one of the SEALs. "We're seeing an unknown aircraft on your 6. High speed, low radar signature. Intercept." Kara's fingers danced over the controls, fine adjustments made instinctively, effortlessly. "I see it. I'm engaging," she said, her voice flat, calm, and deadly precise. "Stay clear. I've got this." The pilots in the F-22 squadron below swallowed hard, glancing at one another. The young Lieutenant Harris's hands were slick with sweat on the controls. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. A single pilot, a woman, outmaneuvering every elite pilot on base, anticipating threats and engaging with skill that defied logic. The SEALs, watching from the tower, shared glances heavy with recognition and disbelief. "She's one of us," one muttered, voice low. "We trained her for situations like this. Ghost Rider doesn't just survive, she dominates." Kara's jet dove suddenly, disappearing behind a cloud bank. For a moment the base went silent, hearts pounding. Then she emerged on the other side, rolling sharply, her F-22 aligned perfectly behind the unknown aircraft. It was a sleek, unmarked craft, moving fast, deadly, and purpose-built. Radar signatures didn't match any known adversary. Kara's instincts, honed over years of classified operations, kicked in immediately. The Admiral's voice trembled as he whispered to himself, "She's already assessed it. She's already planning the strike." Above the clouds, Ghost Rider engaged. Her movements were surgical. She flanked, she diverted, she anticipated. The unknown aircraft responded with aggressive maneuvers, banking sharply, trying to evade her, but Kara was always one step ahead. Every pilot watching the screen below realized with growing horror and awe that she wasn't just matching the unknown jet, she was controlling the engagement. Inside the cockpit, Kara's mind worked like a high-speed computer. Sensors, radar, wind patterns, momentum calculations, they all fed into instinctual reflexes developed over countless Black Ops missions. The incoming aircraft had a weapon system, no doubt, but she calculated angles, timing, and velocity with the precision of someone who had already lived through worse odds. Every maneuver she made was preemptive, decisive, and absolute. From the tower, the SEALs and pilots could only watch. They whispered names, sharing old memories of missions no one else could verify. "Remember the Syria ops? Ghost Rider was there," one said. Another nodded, voice tight. "Afghanistan, same, untraceable, deadly." Meanwhile, the Admiral struggled to reconcile the woman before him with the Ghost Rider legends he had only ever heard in classified briefings. He realized he had underestimated her, and he hated that feeling. He had always been the man in control, the one who issued commands, the one who managed crises. And now, he had nothing but observation, his authority challenged not by a subordinate, but by a ghost of history in human form. Kara's F-22 leveled behind the unknown craft. The engines growled, a low hum that vibrated through the sky. Her hands moved over the controls, making subtle but lethal adjustments, positioning herself for maximum advantage. She didn't need weapons. Her piloting alone created an overwhelming tactical edge. The enemy jet attempted a sharp climb, banking to the left, but Kara anticipated the move, countering instantly, cutting off escape routes. In that instant, the SEALs in the tower stiffened. Ghost Rider wasn't just flying. She was dictating the fight, bending physics and probability to her will. It was as though every maneuver the enemy tried had already been accounted for, every potential outcome simulated and neutralized. Back on the ground, the Admiral gritted his teeth. His mind raced, heart pounding. "She's untouchable," he muttered. He had watched countless pilots, some legendary, some decorated, engage in complex exercises. None had ever moved with such flawless authority, such unshakable control. And then the unexpected happened. The unknown aircraft veered sharply, attempting a high-speed retreat. But Kara anticipated it, cutting her jet into the perfect intercept path. The enemy pilot was caught in a maneuver they hadn't anticipated. Ghost Rider's precision, experience, and instinct had trapped them. Her voice crackled over the radio, calm, deadly, and measured. "You're on my 6. Turn or engage, your choice." The SEALs exchanged tense glances, realizing the magnitude of the moment. Ghost Rider wasn't just a pilot. She was a tactician, a strategist, a warrior. She was legend. And as the unknown jet made a final, desperate maneuver, Kara's F-22 slipped into position, smooth, silent, inevitable. The Admiral's breath caught. He had seen the future of aerial combat unfold before him in the span of a single sortie, and it was defined entirely by the woman they had tried to dismiss. End with suspense. The unknown aircraft froze in the radar feed, motionless for a split second. Then, without warning, it executed a maneuver so unexpected, so deadly, that even Ghost Rider's instincts would be tested. The base collectively held its breath. What was this enemy planning? The desert sky above Edwards Air Force Base was a canvas of heat, shimmer, and tension. Kara Bennett's F-22 sliced through it like a predator, engines screaming with raw power, wings cutting through turbulent air with deadly precision. Below, the SEALs and squadron pilots craned their necks, trying to follow her movements, yet every maneuver left them scrambling, eyes wide, hearts pounding. No one, not even the base's top pilots, could predict her trajectory. She was a force unto herself. The unknown aircraft had revealed its intent. Evasive maneuvers, sharp climbs, and aggressive dives designed to disorient and shake her off. But Kara anticipated each one, countering instinctively. She banked sharply left, barely clearing the rocky ridge line, then rolled over into a near-vertical dive. Dust from the desert floor rose in clouds below, but in the sky only precision mattered. The enemy jet struggled to match her, engines straining, radar warning screaming through its cockpit. From the observation tower, the SEALs exchanged anxious glances. One, a veteran who had trained with Kara years ago, muttered, "She's reading him like an open book. Ghost Rider doesn't just react, she predicts." Another whispered, voice tight with disbelief, "No one can fly like this, not in a real engagement." The Admiral's face was pale, eyes wide, jaw tight. He gripped the railing of the tower as if it were the only anchor in the storm. He had faced countless threats in his career: rogue missiles, hostile airspace incursions, drone swarms, but nothing had prepared him for this. Ghost Rider, Kara Bennett, was rewriting the rules of aerial combat before his eyes. "Sir," Harris's voice cracked over the radio, sweat slicking his palms even as he gripped his throttle, "she's maneuvering outside known parameters. We can't. She's untouchable." The Admiral exhaled sharply. "Just watch and learn," he muttered, though the words sounded more like a warning than advice. Above the desert, the F-22 and the unknown aircraft danced through the sky in a deadly ballet. Every dive, roll, and bank was executed with perfection, yet Kara maintained control, calculating each microsecond with precision. Her mind ran faster than the jet could fly. Every motion the enemy pilot attempted had already been accounted for, neutralized, or used against them. Then came the first test. The unknown craft attempted a vertical climb, banking to escape her tail. Kara anticipated it instantly. She cut sharply, engine screaming, aligning herself perfectly behind the jet in a maneuver so precise it would have been considered impossible for anyone else. Her hands moved over the controls with surgical finesse, fine adjustments made without hesitation, her instincts guiding her like a second consciousness. The SEALs in the tower shifted, exchanging glances of disbelief and admiration. "This is more than skill," one said quietly. "This is instinct, experience, and a lifetime of combat training we weren't supposed to witness." The unknown jet banked hard, rolling sharply, attempting to break the lock. Warning alarms flared in Kara's cockpit, but she reacted instinctively. With a combination of G-force defiance and precise throttle control, she countered the maneuver flawlessly. Her jet was not just a machine under her hands, it was an extension of her own body. Below, the squadron pilots were scrambling to maintain formation. Some had attempted to intercept, others to cover ground, but all movements fell short. Kara moved with a confidence, speed, and authority that made their previous drills seem like child's play. Every move she made was a statement. She was not here to compete, she was here to dominate. From the ground, the SEALs recognized the pattern. This was the Ghost Rider they had trained with, the one who had conducted operations no one outside classified channels could verify. They remembered the Syria missions, the covert insertions in Afghanistan, the Black Ops runs that had never made reports. Every legend they'd heard about Ghost Rider came alive in the sky above Edwards. The unknown aircraft attempted a desperate high-speed retreat, banking sharply east. Kara adjusted instantly, cutting off escape routes with preternatural precision. The jet was fast, aggressive, and deadly, but it was no match for her tactical mind. She anticipated its every maneuver, her calculations instant, flawless. Then came a sudden twist. The enemy pilot released countermeasures, flares streaking into the sky. Radar signals spiked, sensors flashed warnings, but Kara didn't falter. She executed a near-impossible vertical climb, letting the flares burn harmlessly below her. She rolled and accelerated, lining up the unknown aircraft in a perfect intercept path. The movement was almost surgical, an art form of combat flying that defied physics and instinct alike. The SEALs watched with bated breath. She's controlling him, not the other way around, one muttered. Harris, sweating, leaned close to the radio, barely audible. I've never seen anything like this. She's untouchable. The enemy pilot, realizing escape was futile, attempted a final aggressive maneuver, a high-speed dive intended to throw Kara off. But she anticipated it. Every second of that dive had already been accounted for in her mind. Her fingers moved over the controls with confidence born from countless missions, each micro-adjustment precise, deliberate. The unknown aircraft veered sharply, trying to break free, but Kara was always ahead, always predicting, always in control. Her visor reflected the desert below, her focus absolute, her mind calculating at a speed no ordinary pilot could match. Back on the ground, the Admiral's knuckles whitened on the railing. He had seen legends rise and fall, but what he was witnessing transcended legend. Ghost Rider was a living, breathing weapon, a force of nature operating in a theater of her own design. His throat tightened. "She's untouchable," he whispered again, more to himself than anyone else. Kara's jet cut across the sky, aligned perfectly behind the unknown aircraft, engine roaring in a deadly symphony. She spoke calmly over the radio, her voice flat, precise, and authoritative. "Your maneuver is predictable. Stand down or prepare to engage." The SEALs watched in tense silence. No one doubted that she could execute the threat if necessary. Every movement, every word, carried the weight of lethal experience and unshakable authority. The unknown aircraft paused for a fraction of a second, just enough for the tension to skyrocket. Kara adjusted her approach, ready for anything. She was poised, lethal, and completely in control. End with suspense. The unknown aircraft suddenly made a maneuver so unexpected, so aggressive, that even Kara's instincts would be tested. The base collectively held its breath. What had just entered their airspace? And could even Ghost Rider handle it? The desert air had grown thick with tension, the roar of jet engines fatting to a tense silence as Kara Bennett's F-22 descended smoothly onto the runway. Dust swirled around the landing gear, catching in the sunlight and painting the air with a golden haze. She killed the engines and remained seated for a heartbeat longer than necessary, scanning the tarmac, the pilots, the SEALs, and the Admiral himself. She had been in far worse situations, but the moment held a distinct flavor, a calculated reveal, a challenge, and a test of recognition. From the observation tower, the SEALs exchanged glances loaded with unspoken knowledge. One of the older members, Lieutenant Commander Shaw, spoke first, his voice low and reverent. "Admiral, she's not just cleared, she's one of us. She's former Special Forces, top of her class. Her call sign, Ghost Rider, is ours. We train her, we lead operations, it's classified." The Admiral's pale eyes widened as he processed the words. Every instinct he had honed over decades screamed at him that the woman before him was no ordinary pilot. The rumors were true, but he had never expected to see them in action. Kara unclipped her helmet, letting it fall gently onto the cockpit floor. Her hair, tousled by the wind and flight, framed a calm face that betrayed nothing, yet spoke volumes in its quiet confidence. She stepped down from the F-22, boots hitting the tarmac with deliberate authority. Every SEAL instinctively straightened, some dropping to one knee, saluting in a ritual of recognition and respect they had never offered lightly. The Admiral froze, hand halfway to the radio. His throat tightened as he realized he had just witnessed an undeniable truth. The woman he had ordered off base moments ago was a legend in her own right, a living embodiment of Ghost Rider's legacy. Kara's eyes swept the gathered group. Calm, poised, controlled, but there was a subtle glint of challenge there, a silent test. "Do you want me to show you what I can really do?" she asked softly, but the weight of the words carried like a hammer drop across the tarmac. The Admiral swallowed hard. He had given commands, issued orders, directed operations where lives hung in the balance. Yet now, faced with this revelation, he felt unmoored. Every rule, every assumption about hierarchy, about authority, about control, was suddenly secondary to the presence of Kara Bennett. She had arrived, unannounced, unmatched, and undeniable. Harris, still catching his breath from the high-speed sortie, approached cautiously. "Ma'am, sir, I mean Admiral, he stammered, unsure whether to show awe or protocol-driven caution. Kara glanced at him, a faint smirk tugging at the corner of her lips. "You'll learn," she said simply. No further explanation was necessary. Her reputation preceded her, even if Harris hadn't fully grasped it yet. SEALs began to brief the Admiral in fragmented whispers. Ghost Rider had been deployed on classified missions across multiple theaters: Syria, Afghanistan, covert insertions into enemy territories with no trace left behind. Reports of her feats existed only in encrypted channels few had access to. The younger pilots could barely comprehend the skill level on display. "We trained her," one SEAL said quietly. "We know what she can do. She doesn't just fly, she leads, she survives. She dominates." The Admiral, though still processing, finally managed to speak. Why was she sent here as a civilian contractor? Why was I informed?" His voice carried both frustration and the faint tremor of fear. Shaw's answer was steady, measured. "It wasn't for you to know. Operations like hers, Ghost Rider, doesn't enter a command hierarchy. She enters when the mission demands it. Orders can't contain her. Clearances don't control her. And she works best when underestimated." Kara's gaze flicked briefly to the SEALs before returning to the Admiral. She didn't need to say more. The truth was written in every scar, every movement, every flicker of controlled intensity in her posture. She was Ghost Rider, not just a call sign, but a statement of lethal capability, calculated precision, and legendary authority. A sudden alert on the radar reminded everyone that the world beyond Edwards Air Force Base was still dangerous, still unpredictable. The unknown aircraft from earlier, fast, unmarked, aggressive, was still a factor, but Kara wasn't concerned. She had faced far worse alone and emerged unscathed. To her, this unknown target was merely another variable, another equation in a set of challenges she had long ago mastered. The SEALs in the tower watched her, awe and relief mingling in equal measure. Ghost Rider wasn't just back in action. She was asserting dominance, setting the tone, and ensuring that everyone who doubted her presence understood her authority. One muttered, voice barely audible, "We always knew, she's the one who changes the odds." Kara turned to the Admiral, her eyes locking with his. "You wanted a demonstration, sir. Consider this the first lesson." Her tone was flat calm, but it carried the unmistakable weight of command. No one questioned it. Even the men who had trained for decades felt the shift in authority radiating from her presence. The young Lieutenant Harris still struggled to process everything. He had witnessed a single pilot, a woman, no less, outmaneuvering the base's top pilots, controlling a high-speed engagement, and demonstrating combat mastery that no textbook could teach. And now she stood on the tarmac, human yet transcendent, commanding respect with nothing but presence. The Admiral finally exhaled, a low sound, part awe, part realization. "Effective immediately, she's reassigned under my direct command," he said. Every SEAL, every pilot, every aide froze, reassigned. That simple statement meant the chain of command had just shifted, subtly but irrevocably. Ghost Rider was no longer a rumor, a myth, or an anomaly. She was now officially part of the operational structure, but on her terms. Kara acknowledged the reassignment with a single nod, her expression unchanging, yet her eyes sparkled with a faint, almost imperceptible thrill. The challenge, the thrill of action, of recognition, of mission, the essence of why she existed, was still alive. And then, as if on cue, the radar pinged again. Another unknown signal, faster, sharper, more dangerous than the last. The base went tense again, the hum of engines and electronics reminding everyone that the outside world hadn't paused to process Kara's legend. The SEALs and pilots instinctively shifted, readying themselves. But Kara didn't flinch. She walked toward her jet, each step measured, each movement radiating lethal confidence. She climbed into the cockpit, hands moving over the controls like a conductor guiding an orchestra. Every microsecond, every calculation, every instinct was engaged. Harris watched her awestruck. "She's unstoppable," he whispered. Shaw shook his head, eyes narrowed on the approaching threat. "No," he said quietly. "She's not just unstoppable, she's inevitable." The base held its collective breath as Kara adjusted her helmet, clipped in, ready. Engines roared, dust lifted in spiraling clouds, and Ghost Rider prepared to engage the unknown once more. The desert air seemed to crackle with anticipation, every pilot, SEAL, and officer silently acknowledging the impossible. She was in command, she was legend, and she had only just begun. The radar blip was moving faster now, cutting across the desert sky like a phantom, sleek and silent. The base's alert sirens screamed, engines whined, and crews scrambled in organized chaos. Kara Bennett sat in the cockpit of her F-22, hands poised on the controls, helmet reflecting the blinding sun, visor hiding eyes that were calculating faster than any computer could. The unknown aircraft wasn't just fast, it was unlike anything she'd seen in standard intelligence briefings. Its trajectory, its approach vector, its acceleration curves all defied conventional physics. And that made it dangerous. From the observation tower, SEALs and pilots leaned forward, eyes wide. "Sir, it's moving too fast to be conventional," one muttered. Harris, gripping the throttle nervously, tried to anticipate the threat alongside her. But the moment he tried, Kara's voice cut through the radio, calm and lethal. "I've got it. Maintain distance. Stay out of my way." The words carried weight. They weren't a suggestion, they were a command, unchallengeable. The SEALs instinctively obeyed, recognizing the cadence and authority of Ghost Rider. She didn't just react to threats, she controlled them. The unknown aircraft streaked closer. Radar blips confirmed it was armed, likely equipped with high-velocity ordnance designed to destabilize conventional jets. But Kara wasn't concerned. Her mind, trained for countless Black Ops missions, processed the threat instantly. She calculated speed, angle, wind drift, payload weight, and predicted movement vectors, all in milliseconds. Every instinct, every muscle memory from years of classified operations engaged at once. She banked sharply left, then rolled, executing a maneuver so precise it left even the base's elite pilots gasping. The unknown craft responded, banking violently, but Kara anticipated the exact angle of its turn. She countered instantly, closing the distance with surgical precision. Her F-22 was more than a machine. It was an extension of her body, her mind, her will. The SEALs watched from the tower, whispers of disbelief and awe breaking through. "She's reading it like it's an open book," one said. Another muttered, "Ghost Rider doesn't just pilot, she predicts. She controls." From the ground, the Admiral gritted his teeth, fists clenched on the railing. He had witnessed extraordinary feats before, rogue jets, insurgent air maneuvers, even live missile tests gone wrong, but nothing compared to this. Kara Bennett, the woman he had tried to dismiss moments ago, was commanding the sky with lethal efficiency. And the realization was unsettling. She was untouchable, inevitable, and operating entirely on her own terms. The unknown aircraft executed a sudden dive, aiming to force Kara into a high-G turn that could overload her F-22. Her hands moved over the controls with split-second precision, adjusting throttle, stabilizers, and ailerons to counter the move. She rolled mid-dive, flipping over the unknown jet's path, forcing it to overshoot. Dust from the desert floor rose in swirling clouds far below, unnoticed amidst the chaos above. "Sir," Harris's voice cracked, tension evident. "I've never seen anyone move like that. She's beyond human." The Admiral didn't respond verbally. His eyes, however, betrayed his understanding. Ghost Rider was no ordinary pilot. Her skill, her instincts, her precision, everything confirmed the legends he had only glimpsed in classified briefings. And yet, she wasn't just a legend. She was here, alive, in command, rewriting the rules of engagement. Above the clouds, Kara tracked the unknown aircraft with unwavering focus. She noticed patterns, subtle micro-movements in the control surfaces, minor shifts in thrust output, tiny variations in the radar signature. These weren't random. The pilot or entity was testing her, probing for weaknesses, and Kara was ready. A sudden spike on the radar indicated a secondary threat. Another blip appeared, closing fast from the north. Kara's eyes narrowed. Two unknowns, high-speed, highly aggressive. She adjusted her trajectory, banking sharply to intercept the first while maintaining awareness of the second. Her mental calculation was instantaneous. Intercept vector, optimal energy usage, defensive positioning, predictive flight paths. The first unknown craft made a desperate maneuver, attempting to force her off course. But Kara's instincts were flawless. She cut in front, forcing it into a constrained flight path, trapping it against the desert's horizon. For a fleeting second, the aircraft froze in her radar, then accelerated again, reckless and aggressive. Kara anticipated it, countering with a calculated roll that left the enemy pilot scrambling for control. On the ground, the SEALs' collective breath caught. "She's not just engaging, she's dominating," one whispered. Another nodded grimly. "If anyone can handle two unknowns at once, it's her." Kara's calm voice carried over the radio, precise, clipped, commanding. "Secondary threat detected. Initiating containment protocols. Maintain safe distance, SEAL units." The Admiral's stomach knotted. For decades, he had trained for emergencies, for scenarios that could kill hundreds, for crises that demanded split-second decisions. But this was beyond his training. He could only watch as Kara engaged, moving faster, thinking faster, controlling the sky with absolute authority. The unknown aircraft attempted a high-speed reversal, aiming to catch her off guard. Kara executed a vertical climb, flipping her F-22 over in a near-impossible maneuver. She aligned perfectly, closing the gap. She didn't fire weapons, not yet. Her positioning alone dictated the outcome. Every microsecond, every motion, every calculation reinforced her dominance. Harris, still in his F-22, swallowed hard. "She's untouchable," he whispered again. "I can't believe this is real." The SEALs exchanged tense glances. They had trained her, deployed with her, relied on her in operations no one else could comprehend. But even they weren't prepared to see her in this environment, controlling the sky, reading enemies like open books, dictating every move. Ghost Rider wasn't just back. She was proving why she had earned her legend. Then came the final test. The first unknown craft executed a maneuver so sudden and aggressive that it could have destroyed most pilots on sight. Kara's F-22 twisted, rolled, and countered perfectly, intercepting its path, forcing it into a retreat trajectory. But the secondary unknown blip remained, fast, calculating, and unyielding. Kara didn't hesitate. She banked sharply, engines screaming, cutting a path to intercept the second target while maintaining dominance over the first. The observation tower was silent, save for the shallow breathing of SEALs. Every movement, every maneuver, every calculation was being executed in real time, flawless, untouchable, legendary. And as she leveled her F-22, engines roaring, visor reflecting the blinding desert light, Kara Bennett spoke over the radio in that calm, deadly voice. "Ghost Rider, threats neutralized. Stand by for extraction. All units maintain secure distance." The SEALs exhaled collectively, some slumping, some nodding in awe. The Admiral's hand released the railing, trembling slightly. He had witnessed extraordinary skill before, but nothing like this. Ghost Rider wasn't just a pilot. She was a force of nature, a calculated weapon, a legend manifest. The desert air trembled with the roar of engines and tension. Kara Bennett's F-22 glinted like silver fire as she leveled over the tarmac, scanning the horizon with the precision of someone who had lived a lifetime in seconds. The unknown blips had vanished for now, but the adrenaline remained thick. Everyone at Edwards Air Force Base, SEALs, pilots, mechanics, and the Admiral himself, held their collective breath, waiting, watching, struggling to reconcile the woman they had just witnessed with the legend whispered in classified corridors, Ghost Rider. The SEALs moved instinctively, forming a line at the edge of the tarmac. Their hands hovered near their belts, eyes narrowed, postures taut with respect and anticipation. Years of training and operational experience had taught them one unshakable truth. Ghost Rider wasn't just a call sign. She was a force, a symbol, and an undeniable authority. And now she stood before them, not in the shadows, not in secrecy, but in the open, fully aware that recognition and respect were imminent. The Admiral remained at the control tower, fists gripping the railing. His throat was tight, jaw rigid, mind racing. He had ordered her off the base just hours ago, convinced that protocol would prevail over legend. But now, after witnessing her unmatched skill and composure, he understood the depth of his misjudgment. This woman wasn't to be dismissed. She was to be acknowledged. Kara climbed down from her F-22, boots hitting the tarmac with a quiet authority that demanded attention. The SEALs immediately snapped to formal posture, a ripple of recognition and deference moving through their ranks. Their training took over instinctively, but there was also something more: memory, respect, and history. Ghost Rider had once saved them, led them, protected them from threats that had never been acknowledged publicly. They had seen her operate under impossible circumstances, emerging unscathed, commanding situations no one else could manage. "Admiral," Kara said, her voice calm but carrying weight, "I've completed the initial engagement assessment. Threats neutralized, all units secure." The Admiral nodded slowly, swallowing hard. Every syllable confirmed what he had already seen. This woman was untouchable, unmatched, and beyond the boundaries of conventional authority. He gestured toward the SEALs, a silent acknowledgement of their recognition. "Stand down," he said, voice carrying both respect and disbelief. The SEALs did not move immediately. Instead, one by one, they dropped to one knee, heads bowed. It was a ritual learned over years of operations, a salute reserved for those whose legend had been forged in fire, blood, and impossible missions. One by one, their hands rose in salute, a symbol of respect, loyalty, and acknowledgement that transcended rank. The air was heavy with the weight of unspoken history, a quiet reverence that spoke louder than words ever could. Kara's eyes behind the mirrored visor scanned the assembled group. Calm, poised, and controlled, she accepted the salute without comment, acknowledging each SEAL with a subtle nod. Her presence was magnetic, commanding respect simply by being. She did not need to assert authority. It was inherent, undeniable, and absolute. The young Lieutenant Harris stepped forward cautiously. He had seen her in action, had witnessed maneuvers that defied logic, yet he still struggled to grasp the full scope of her skill. "Ma'am, sir, Admiral," he began, voice trembling, I think I understand now. You, she, your," his words faltered, insufficient to describe what he had just seen. Kara turned her gaze on him, visor reflecting the sun. "Learning takes time," she said almost gently. "Pay attention, observe, follow protocol when needed, but understand that the mission comes first." There was no arrogance, no condescension. Her tone was instructional, almost maternal, yet carried lethal authority. From the tower, the Admiral observed silently. He had watched countless pilots, SEALs, and leaders, yet none had moved the way Kara had moved, none had commanded the way she commanded, none had inspired the instinctive respect that radiated from the men at her feet. For decades, he had understood authority as a structure, as rules, as hierarchy. Ghost Rider had redefined it in seconds. She was authority incarnate. The base had begun to quiet, dust settling, engines humming down. Yet the tension remained. Kara knew the unknown threats were not gone. They were merely waiting, testing, observing. And she was ready. She had never faced a threat she could not calculate, a scenario she could not dominate. But even legends must prepare for the unexpected. The SEALs straightened after the salute, eyes still on her. One stepped forward, voice low, almost reverent. "We've trained for years, but nothing compares to watching you in the air. You're Ghost Rider." Kara nodded slightly, acknowledgement enough. No words were necessary. The recognition, the salute, the shared understanding of experience and skill, these were enough. She was not here to boast, to intimidate, or to command unnecessarily. She was here to execute, to lead, and to remind them all why her presence mattered. The Admiral exhaled sharply, a mixture of relief, awe, and fear. He had witnessed the impossible, a single pilot, a woman, defying expectation, commanding respect, and neutralizing threats with a combination of instinct, precision, and calculated authority. He understood, finally, why the Pentagon had never revealed her presence fully. Ghost Rider's abilities and accomplishments transcended bureaucracy. A sudden alert on the radar broke the quiet. Another blip, faster and sharper than any before, appeared on the northern horizon. Engines roared as the base reacted. Kara's visor reflected the incoming threat, her calm expression unwavering. The SEALs instinctively readied themselves, understanding that the real test had not yet arrived. Kara climbed back into her F-22 with methodical precision, boots clicking against the ladder, hands gripping the controls. She adjusted her helmet, visor locking into place, and spoke over the radio in the calm, deadly tone that had already commanded respect. Ghost Rider, threat inbound. Initiating engagement protocols. All units maintain secure distance. The SEALs and pilots stepped back, watching, waiting, and acknowledging the inevitability of what was to come. The salute had been given, respect had been earned, and the stage was set. Ghost Rider was ready, and everyone knew. The sky was hers to control. The desert horizon burned gold as the sun hit its zenith, scattering light across the base. Kara Bennett's F-22 roared down the runway, engines screaming, as radar confirmed the final unknown target slicing toward Edwards Air Force Base at impossible speed. The air itself seemed to tremble under the velocity and threat. This was no ordinary aircraft. It was sleek, unmarked, and designed for evasive maneuvers that could shred conventional pilots in seconds. Even the SEALs, hardened veterans of countless Black Ops missions, leaned forward, eyes wide, gripping the railings of the observation tower. Kara's hands danced over the controls with instinctive precision, her body attuned to the aircraft as if it were an extension of her own limbs. She scanned the incoming blip, predicting its every movement before it could occur. Her mind ran simulations faster than any computer on the base. The unknown craft was aggressive, intelligent, and deadly, but she had faced threats like this before, in theaters no one outside classified channels could confirm. "Ghost Rider," Harris whispered, voice trembling as he clutched the throttle in his own F-22. This is unreal." Kara didn't respond. Her focus was absolute. One misstep, one miscalculation, and the threat could turn lethal in an instant. She had no room for hesitation. Every muscle, every neuron, every calculation in her mind aligned toward one goal: control. The unknown craft made the first move, banking sharply to the left in a maneuver designed to exploit the blind spots of conventional pilots. Kara anticipated it. She rolled her F-22 midair, engines screaming, aligning herself perfectly behind the target. The craft attempted a sudden vertical climb to shake her off, but she countered instantly, accelerating with precision that defied physics. Every movement was tactical, measured, and lethal in potential. From the observation tower, the SEALs exchanged glances of awe. "She's reading it like an open book," one muttered. Another nodded gravely. "Ghost Rider doesn't just react, she dictates the engagement." The Admiral's jaw was tight. His fists gripped the railing as he realized the full magnitude of the woman before him. Every rule, every protocol, every expectation had just been nullified. This was no ordinary pilot, no ordinary operative. Ghost Rider was a force of nature, operating outside conventional limits, redefining what authority and skill meant in the sky. Kara executed a sharp dive, closing in on the unknown craft. Sensors pinged, missile lock, evasive countermeasures, but she was ready. She adjusted her approach, anticipating every evasive move. She didn't just fly, she commanded the battle. Every maneuver was a chess move, calculated, precise, and overwhelming. The enemy pilot or entity couldn't outthink her. They could only react, and Kara had already written the script. Suddenly, the craft veered sharply toward a canyon ridge, attempting to use the terrain as a defensive advantage. Kara tilted her F-22, engines screaming, and cut across the ridge with impossible precision. Dust exploded below as her aircraft carved the air with deadly elegance. She flipped over the ridge, lining herself up perfectly behind the target. The SEALs, holding their breath, muttered in awe, "She's untouchable, unstoppable, inevitable." Harris swallowed hard, realization dawning. We were watching a legend. Kara's voice crackled over the radio, calm and commanding. "Ghost Rider, threat contained. Stand by for extraction. All units maintain secure distance." The unknown aircraft hesitated. Its movements grew erratic, calculations failed, instincts faltered. Kara pressed the advantage, positioning her F-22 with surgical precision. Then, without firing a single weapon, she forced the craft into a controlled retreat, cutting off escape vectors and forcing it to break engagement. Every move screamed authority, skill, and dominance. The base erupted in quiet awe. SEALs exhaled collectively, saluting once more. The Admiral finally stepped forward, voice trembling, eyes locked on Kara as she touched down smoothly, the F-22's engines whirring down. "Ma'am," he said finally, voice tight with respect, I underestimated you. Ghost Rider isn't just a pilot. He trailed off, searching for words that didn't exist. Kara removed her helmet, hair slightly wind-blown, visor reflecting the desert sun. Calm, poised, lethal, her presence alone commanded reverence. She smiled faintly, almost imperceptibly, as if acknowledging the unspoken understanding. Her legend was no longer secret, no longer hypothetical. It was real. The SEALs approached, saluting formally. "Welcome back, Ghost Rider," one said. "We knew you'd handle it, but seeing it's unreal." Kara nodded, accepting the salutes. She wasn't boastful. She didn't need to be. Every move, every maneuver, every action had already spoken volumes. She had proven herself, not just as a pilot, not just as a warrior, but as a living legend, the embodiment of authority, skill, and controlled chaos. The Admiral swallowed, eyes still wide. "Effective immediately," he said slowly, his voice carrying both reverence and authority. "Ghost Rider will operate under direct command of this base for all incoming and high-risk airspace threats. No exceptions. All units are to defer and respect her authority." Kara nodded. "Understood, sir." Her tone was calm, professional, yet imbued with the quiet confidence of someone who had seen war, chaos, and death, and emerged unshaken every time. Radar alerts quieted. The desert sky returned to its blazing calm, as if acknowledging the conclusion of a storm, but Kara knew better. There would always be threats. Unknown aircraft, hostile forces, unpredictable variables. She had faced them all before, and she would face them again. Yet in this moment, Edwards Air Force Base and every soul watching recognized a truth. Ghost Rider wasn't just back. She was legend. The SEALs gathered around, exchanging stories in quiet, reverent tones. "We've trained with her," one said softly. "We've deployed with her, but seeing it's something else. His words trailed, swallowed by awe. Harris, still struggling to comprehend, finally spoke aloud. I get it now. Ghost Rider, she isn't just a pilot, she's a force. You don't fight her, you follow, you respect, you learn." Kara looked at him, calm, lethal, radiant in quiet authority. "Exactly, remember that." The Admiral took a deep breath, letting the tension leave his body slowly. He had learned a lesson he would never forget. Authority is earned through skill, precision, and the courage to act when others hesitate. And Ghost Rider had proven all three in a single, breathtaking display. End with suspense and emotional closure. As the F-22 engines died completely, Kara gazed toward the horizon, where distant clouds gathered like a storm waiting. She knew the battles ahead would come, but so would she, calm, lethal, and unstoppable. Edwards Air Force Base had witnessed her legend confirmed, but the world beyond the desert sky remained unpredictable. And somewhere out there, Another threat was rising, waiting for Ghost Rider's inevitable arrival. The SEALs, the pilots, the Admiral, they all understood the truth. Ghost Rider was no myth, no rumor. She was real, and she was unstoppable.